All right, it is 5:30. Time to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody that's in attendance today for the meeting. I hope this goes well and we're not here an overextended length of time. Okay. I'll let you get up and running here.
I'm okay. Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Thanks.
Commissioners, have you had a chance to look at the agenda? Any questions or concerns about the agenda?
I'm good.
I'd like to remove item G, I, and J from the consent agenda and if we could put item I before the presentation. And then G and J in items for commission action.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And on the common consent agenda, we are removing items G, I, and J, and we will put item I before the presentation. We have a gentleman here that has a long trip back and we'd like to get him in and out, so he's not here for a couple of hours. So with that, do I have a motion? I make a motion that we adopt the common consent agenda with the removal of G, I, and J, and put item I before the presentation, and G and J items for commission action.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right. So that puts you.
Yeah.
That puts you up here. Would you please step up to the podium and identify, give your name, please?
My name is Philip Halstead. I work for Intertech PSI as a staff scientist.
Okay.
I'm just here to answer any questions or concerns about the growing mold problem in the basement of the old City Hall building. I just oversaw and did air testing during the asbestos abatement in that building, and some concerns were brought up by the general contractor and demolition subcontractor about this mold problem in terms of the health of their workers, and I wrote up a change order to get this mold abated, and with our company overseeing it and running the clearances to after they finish the abatement. Like I said, I'm here to answer any questions or concerns about that.
The initial tests and report that we received stated that the mold was not at a state that would require abatement, and now as we begin to start construction, we received the change order and the notice that there's an issue or a concern. Can you explain to us what took place, that at one time it was okay and now it's not?
Yes, I believe I sent Kelly at least a snippet from our old report, which was from, I believe, April of 2017. And our levels of mold were anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 spores per cubic meter. The unfortunate part about mold is that there is not any set standard for what is considered toxic or endangered to human health. A kind of overseeing rule on mold is 10,000 spores per cubic meter is considered a moderate level of mold, and over 100,000 is a severe level of mold. And some of our samples came back in the 2,000 to 4,000 range, but I did have one sample come back at 17,000 spores per cubic meter, and one sample come back at 150,000 spores per cubic meter. That is when you get into a range that can affect human health depending on who the person is. Like I said, I can't really say that it's a toxic level, but even the supervisor on site for the asbestos abatement who came down to do the survey, I believe an Excel spreadsheet was included with the amounts of contaminated areas. He helped me with that, and his nose was running. He was having not necessarily trouble breathing, but he could feel it after being down there for a little while. And the demo subcontractor for this project brought up some concerns about having his workers down there for extended periods of time. So that's why this change order was submitted.
So probably since we had such a wet spring and no air movement,
Yeah,
just
and 2 years
increase the bloom.
and 2 years of time also.
Yeah.
It grows on itself. It's an exponential curve. There's one skylight that I've noted that there might be some water coming in through an air shaft. One of the sump pumps definitely isn't working currently. The other one keeps the area pretty dry, but there's definitely standing water in a furnace area. And then we've noticed even through the natural rock in the walls, it's moist. So the water's just coming in through there as well.
Okay.
So that's, until those issues get fixed and the water coming in through the natural rock really isn't something that can get fixed currently. I know I've talked with Justin, who's the general contractor, and he noted that in his scope of the project that there wasn't a waterproofing included. It's not my place to say, but that might be something to at least look into or talk with him on, just so that we are not running into this problem 4 or 5, or maybe even 10 years down the road. We don't want to have another mold remediation project if we
Right.
don't have to.
Yeah, they did investigate, and the membrane on the outside still is in good condition.
Okay.
So there's some things, but we're wanting an explanation of why it was good and now it's not. So I appreciate you staying and explaining that to us. That was basically my question when we had announced that there wasn't an issue, and now we're looking at a change order. I think in one of the letters, maybe it was from Hofer, that there will be a credit for some demolition that was
Yes.
included in their contract, but it's going to be included in the change order, so we will be getting a credit later on.
Yeah, the credit was identified in the amount of $12,000, according to the letter that I printed off here.
Mhm.
So, and if I understood right, Philip, you said that the asbestos removal has been completed?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
I oversaw that. We removed the floor tile and mastic on first and second floors.
Okay.
We had some piping insulation underneath the vault area, and we
Okay.
also had a textured ceiling in one of the garage bays, and all of that has been removed, abated, and cleared
Okay.
through air sampling. So any demolition or renovation that needs to be done should have no problem going forward.
Okay. So once we get the sump pump working and clear up the moisture problem in the basement to where the samples test, then the construction crew can come in and start working in that area. You will come back and do another sample when this is all when the sump pump is fixed or it's become working again and the water's out.
If desired, before the mold abasion happens, I can come out to do some baseline samples. If desired, we can talk about that. But really, all that needs to be done is the abatement company needs to come in, take care of it. And so unlike the asbestos, during the asbestos abatement, I need to be there on site taking active air samples.
Okay.
With this, as long as they're wearing their respirators and working down there and taking care of it, there's no regulations that really state what they need to do.
Okay.
So once they're done, I'll come in and I'll take what's called clearance samples. I'll take a background sample outside of the building, and I'll take anywhere from 4 to 10 samples inside the building to check mold levels to make sure that, at least compared to what I found last week, is much farther down, and we should be good to go after that. But I do know that Advanced Midwest, who's the company on the change order for doing that, would do quite a bit of demolition and decontamination or cleaning, depending on if stuff's being saved or not.
Okay.
So that's why that credit is probably in there, because they're doing a fair bit of the demolition in the basement.
Okay. And as far as the timeline, this doesn't actually extend the timeline further down the road. It'll be work that'll be going on as other work's being performed.
Right, yeah, it really shouldn't affect anything else that's going on at the building. It can be slid in there whenever. The work was estimated to be done in about a week and a half's time.
Okay.
On the sump pumps, we have had those repaired twice in March of 2018, the one in the basement and the boiler room, and March of 2019, both times the pipes froze.
Okay.
And then Newton's was there yesterday, and they had told me they had gotten the one in the boiler room functioning yesterday. So I don't know if you were in there today or not.
No, we didn't go down.
Okay,
I did a once over of the area. Yesterday, I know there was still standing water in there, but I'm not sure if there is today.
Yesterday, he called me and told me that all the water had been pumped out, and it was just, there was a electrical connection. It wasn't making the connection. Then the one out in the manhole, he said there was some issue with a float or something, and he was supposed to come back today and look at that one, and then also check the one that we haven't had any issues with yet, but just to make sure there was no issues with it as well. So, and I haven't talked to him again after today, so, but we are getting those issues addressed as well.
Okay, great. Great. Good news. Any other questions?
No, that was all.
Okay. Philip, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you,
safe
sir.
trip home.
I will, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving right along, we are,
Well,
oh, sorry.
I make a motion to approve the change order with
sorry.
Intertech PSI in the amount of $38,200 for mold abatement at 1916 City Hall.
I second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. All right, now we are looking at presentations. Presentation of the 2018 audit. Yes, sir. How are you this evening?
Doing good. I like that guy. His name's Philip. My name's Philip Jared.
Philip, welcome.
What a coincidence. We've completed City of Independence audit for the calendar year ended December 31, 2018. I see you have the audit report in front of you, so I'll take you through there, point out a few things as quickly as possible. Page 1, 2, and 3 is our opinion letter on your financial statements. It's a clean opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting, which is the same way you keep your books and records and the same way you do your budgeting. So in all the funds, on the receipt side, it's cash received, cash receipts. On the expense side of it's more of an accrual basis, so it's a very conservative basis of accounting. So you don't count cash till you get it, but you count all the bills that you incur, even though you may pay them a month or 2 months later. So that's what's called the regulatory basis of accounting. When you waive out from under GAAP on an annual basis, that allows you to do this type of accounting, which most municipalities in Kansas do, unless you're a significantly large entity like City of Wichita that may use generally accepted accounting principles, and they have depreciation of assets and a whole bunch of other stuff that comes into play, which is a little bit too expensive for most smaller municipalities. Page 5, or page 4, I should say, page 4 and 5, is a summary statement of receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash. This statement shows us whether you complied with the Kansas cash basis law, and that law is that you don't encumber any cash in excess of a cash balance. So if you look down through that statement in column 4, it has the ending unencumbered cash balance at December 31/18. And if all those are positive balances, you did comply with the Kansas cash basis law. If there are any negative balances, that would tend to indicate that you would have violated the cash basis law. However, if a fund is awaiting a reimbursement, then you're exempt from the Kansas cash basis law. So I believe all your funds met those criteria, and it's in a footnote later we'll get to. So the ones that do have negative were funds that were waiting a reimbursement, so you're still in compliance with the cash basis law, because once you get that reimbursement, they will be positive again. I like to look at this statement and see what the trends are in the various fund balances. If they go up or down significantly, you might want to look into the detail and look into why that occurred. I looked at these just briefly sitting here. I didn't see anything going down. Everything looked like you recovered nicely on some fund balances that were getting low last year. The bottom right-hand corner of the page, on page 5, we take the cash balances and show you in the order of liquidity what type of accounts those funds are held in. And, of course, we've confirmed those bank accounts, et cetera, to make sure that they actually exist in that amount. Page 6 excuse me, is the beginning of the footnotes. Footnote number 1 is the longest footnote, the largest footnote, summary of significant accounting policies. Lets the users of your financial statements understand what policies are being followed in the preparation of the statements. Probably not a lot of wording change, if any, from prior years, but it does let the users understand in case they're trying to compare your city to another, they make sure that they're comparing apples to apples. If you look on page 8, I like to point out the budgetary information. There's 4 bullet points there on page 8 that shows the budget process and some deadline dates there. Those are not fast deadlines, but they're deadlines everybody tries to comply with so we can get the budgets rolled up to the county and get the tax roll assessed at the end of the year. The other thing I wanted to point out is the bottom paragraph on that page. If you amended any originally published budgets, we need to point out to the users that there are budget amendments out there for any particular fund. You did amend your bond and interest fund, airport, education sales tax, special use sales tax, and the special park and rec fund. So anyone looking at your original budget needs to be aware that those funds were amended later and need to pick up on that to make sure if they're seeing if you complied with the budget law. Page 10, footnote number 3, the gist of that footnote is to explain the statutes as far as deposits and investments and how the city can invest money. And then we give some dollar amounts there in the last paragraph showing that the carrying amount of deposits was $12,171,575, and the bank balance would be higher than that because you had outstanding checks at the year. Anytime you have bank balances in less than 5 banks, they consider it a credit risk. And then we put some numbers in there showing that we're looking to make sure that you are covered either with FDIC insurance or securities pledged by the financial institutions to make sure that if that financial institution should fail, you could sell those securities of theirs that are pledged to you at fair market value and restore the public's money. So we look through that during the year as well, looking at the highest cash balances, make sure you have a monitoring process in place to make sure you're in compliance with that all year long. Did not have any problems with that. Everything checked out okay. The banks do a pretty good job of self-monitoring and making sure that the balances you have in there, minus the $250,000 FDIC coverage, make sure that they pledge securities. So they do a pretty good job helping out in that area. Page 12, footnote number 4, 12 and 13 actually, is the, actually I need to back up to page 11. Page 11 is the long-term debt of the city. Shows the debt issues, the type of issue down the left-hand side, the interest rates, when it began, when it matures, the original amount. And on the right-hand side, it shows the activity for the year, any increases in debt or any payments. Last year, the city decreased the debt $1.2 million and increased the Kansas Water Pollution Control $604,000. So you did have a net decrease there of about $600,000. The next page, the next 2 pages, page 12 and 13, takes that same debt and shows you the next 5 years of principal and interest. and then it's in 5-year increments thereafter until it shows that the debt matures. So it's a good schedule for budgeting purposes. When you get your budget done, if you haven't already done so, make sure all these debt payments are budgeted somewhere to get covered, and make sure you have the financing to be able to pay for them. Page 14 and 15 are just additional information on some of the capital lease obligations that was just in the bottom of that debt schedule. We like to put this in here because it gives us a little more information about the capital lease payment and some things that just hard to quantify in a tabular format, so a little bit more information. Not a required footnote, but we think it's important to get full disclosure of what's going on. Page 15, footnote number 6, we have to disclose if there's any industrial revenue bonds out there. Even though the city's not obligated for those bonds, typically you do have kind of an oversight approval when they start out, so we disclosed there the principal balances outstanding was $19,575,000. Footnote number 7, if you have any operating leases that potentially bind future commissions, we point those out, and you just had one for a little postage meter that matures in 2019, then you'll probably re-up that one for a period of time again. And we have to disclose the rent expense, which is $2,601 on that for 2018. Page 16, footnote number 8 is a CAPERS footnote where you can write or call to get information about the CAPERS plan. Right above the heading that says net pension liability, the last sentence says contributions to the pension plan from the city were $466,146. That would be the employer's match of the CAPERS system for your employees. And then that net pension liability footnote is a required disclosure that the state gives us. Every 2 or 3 years, they do an actuarial study of the CAPERS system. And of course, you've heard CAPERS is underfunded. And so they go through, and based on the number of employees you have, their pay rates, their ages, and what kind of return that they assume the CAPERS system is going to make, and the money going in each year, blah, blah, blah. And they've come up with a liability for the city of Independence that you're short $3,791,708. So I tell everybody, if you'd like to write them a check, go ahead, but it's not required. It's just for full disclosure, since that liability doesn't show up in any of the financial statements anywhere. If you were doing a full GAAP, general accepted accounting principle statement, we'd have a huge expense to book to your funds, to record in the funds, and a huge liability to record in the changes each year. So it's a very complicated process. Page 17, capital projects, footnote number 9. You have various capital projects underway, and we show those in there, and the amount authorized, the amount expended. The important thing is I want to remind you of is if you do ever start to exceed the original authorization on a capital project, the commission needs to come back and re-up that and get that in the minutes that you've reauthorized a higher amount. Because that does happen occasionally when you get into a project and you have some change orders or whatever. These show things that are in process. They're all under the amounts of the original authorization. Footnote number 10, talking about other long-term obligations, basically your annual leave and your sick leave policy. And we kind of highly summarize your policy there in the 4 bullet points as to when you recognize a liability. So in accordance with that criteria, the city has vacation benefits that employees earned at the end of December of $183,318, and they had not been paid for yet because they hadn't taken that vacation. And we don't estimate anything for sick pay because the right to that benefit, they don't vest in that right. If they leave, they lose it. If they stay, they get paid when they take their sick leave. So that's just another disclosure of an obligation that's out there at some point in time, generally the next year on the annual leave in that case. Page 18, the tail end of footnote number 10, just talking about other post-employment benefits, recognizing the fact that retirees are technically still in your group health insurance plan, and because of their ages typically are higher, it probably raises the rates on younger people and maybe your overall employer cost. That's not quantified anywhere in the financial statements. It's just disclosure that they're covered, even though they pay for their piece of it. But if they weren't on your plan, you had a plan with a lot younger people, your plan might cost a little bit less. Footnote number 11, we have to disclose how the city handles its exposure to risk. The first paragraph shows simply you handle it by purchasing various insurance policies. And then you've also participated in the KMIT system for covering workman's comp, which a lot of municipalities participate in. So for the workman's comp piece of your insurance, you're covered there. Footnote number 12, interfund transfers. If that's important to anybody, the transfers are all summarized between what fund they came from, where they went to, and the statutory authority. If you are interested in that, you don't have to dig through all the individual financial statements and chase them down. Some people like to see what those transfers were. And lastly, footnote 13 on subsequent events. If anything had occurred after December 31, 18 that we felt was material to the financial statements and users of the financial statements, we'd want to disclose that. We did disclose here that you issued KDHE loans for $3.1 million to complete the improvements in the wastewater system. It obviously is a material amount to the city. It occurred after the end of the year and might be important to a user of your financial statement. Page 20 is the budget and actual statement. You did comply with the budget laws of the state of Kansas in that you did not overspend any of your originally published or amended budgets. This is Schedule 1. Behind the footnotes are called schedules. Ahead of the footnotes are called statements, so just some clarification there. Page 21 is a beginning of the individual fund statements. Shows a lot of detail, should kind of match up with how you budget too. The first column there's 2017 actual numbers. The second column is 2018 numbers compared to the budgets for 2018 line items. I would remind you, you're not bound by individual line items when it comes to budgets. You're only bound by state statutes on the total expenditures of a budgeted fund. So obviously the line items are important for management and being able to control, make sure you got enough revenue coming in to fund the services needed of the city. So I'm not going to go through each one of those individual statements, but we'd be here quite a while if we did. The general fund on page 22 through 24 was getting fairly low last year. At the end of 17, it was down to 88,000. So it's gotten built up because they had some reimbursements coming in. So that's nice to see that fund has gotten healthy again. I don't believe I needed to point out any others. You're certainly welcome to look at those. If you have any questions now or later, we'd be glad to try to answer them, or your staff could probably answer the questions too that we've been through it with them. The very last page, page 79, is a statement on agency funds. There are a few funds of the city that really aren't the city's money, but the money is in your coffers, so you're kind of the oversight fiduciary for those funds, and you've got a fire insurance proceed fund, an alcohol assessment fund, and a first aid training fund there, $14,159.50 in total. So not a big amount, but we'd like to make sure those ending cash balances are positive, so one little fund doesn't overspend its money available. Sometimes that can happen. The other letters in the front of the report, one of them is just a single letter. It does not have a date at the top of it. It's just what we used to call our management letter years ago. Now we can't call it that. It's a statement on auditing standard number 70 or something to that effect, and that doesn't mean anything to anybody, so I don't even put it on here. Just things we want to communicate, some things we want to point out to the commission, those in charge of governance. Credit card testing and charge accounts. We test these on everybody, and we do have issues from time to time. But we tested some credit cards and charge accounts, and there were some charges on there that we didn't feel had adequate supporting documentation. And we just want to make sure that you're getting a written claim against the city. That way we don't have an unallowable expense that might lend itself to personal use. We don't know that happened. When you go to an office supply store or whatever, we can't tell if it's business or personal or Walmart or something like that. So you just need to do a little better job getting the receipt and documenting what it's for. And if you're ever unsure, have somebody else sign off on it. Got two people's initials on it, so it just makes it real clean if anybody should look into it later. The other letter does have a date of June 26th at the top, which is the date that this report was completed by us and ready to be issued. It's a required letter of written communication between us as auditor, or whoever the auditor would be, and those in charge of governance, the full commission. The first part of the letter talks about qualitative aspects of accounting practices, And mainly to point out, particularly to new council members, that there were no new accounting policies adopted by the city last year, and the application of existing policies was not changed during 2018. So if you're comparing 17 to 18, the policies were the same. We noted no transactions entered into by the city for which there's a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. So an example would be the payables at the end of the year, making sure that any year-end things that happened in 2018 that might have got paid in January 19 get recognized back in the year that they were incurred. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit, nothing to report there, happily. If we did have problems with records that weren't reconciled, or evasive answers to our audit inquiries, anything like that, we'd be required to report that to you in writing so you can do your oversight responsibilities so you know what's going on. But everything went well. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, adjusting entries for what I call them. We did not have any there. We had no such adjustments. That's unusual. That should say something about the staff last year. Did a great job. I usually start flipping to that to tell you what the entries were, but we didn't have any. Top of the second page, disagreements with management. Nothing to report there. If we did, it would probably be a disagreement over an accounting policy or something like that, and we'd need to point that out to you. That did not occur. Management representations. Every year, the auditor gets a written letter of representation signed by key members of management. That letter is attached. It's a lot of boilerplate language in the accounting profession, but a lot of things that are in that letter just are kind of like things apply to the city that might need to be disclosed in the financial statement. It kind of spurs your thought process to let us know about something that might have occurred that we can't just glean from looking at numbers out of a fund. So I would invite you to read that anytime that you can't sleep at night, because it'll put you to sleep. Management consultation with other independent accountants, that did not occur. Had it occurred, probably would have indicated a disagreement with management over something, but the main point would be we just need to give them any facts that we had so they could render a knowledgeable opinion if that did occur. And everything else on that letter is just kind of the boilerplate sign off on the letter. So everything went well, and that's kind of a quick version of the audit. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer. If you have any later, try to get you an answer.
It's quite an improvement over
the
last time you were here.
The financial position of the city has improved immensely. So
That's great news.
Whoever did it can pat themselves on the back.
Yeah, that's good. They're out in the audience. Good job. And I'm glad to see that we built up our cash reserve.
Yes.
You'd indicated a balance of $88,000 the last.
And in a city this size, $88,000 doesn't get you 10 days through January. So
You felt it was at a sufficient level of what you see?
I didn't look at it, but normally you'd probably want 3 to 4 months of expenses as a carryover. I really didn't look to see what that number might be.
We're a little light on that one.
Like the general fund expends $6.4 million a year, so what is that, $5 million a month? So
500,000.
500,000. Yeah, I was going to say 500,000. Yeah, so you're at 700,000, so that's a lot better.
Okay.
There's one item under capital projects that's a project that was finished a couple of years ago. This is maybe not a question for you, but I'm not sure I understand why the Logan Fountain project still shows we've authorized $249,000 and spent virtually none of it. Should that still be on the books?
What is it? Can you answer that?
Page 17,
Okay.
under capital projects.
Authorized at $249,000 and
Yeah, that's-
$2,458.75 expended.
Yeah, it's been done a long time, and I don't even think the city paid much of it. It was mostly
I thought it
donations.
was all donations.
Well, we chipped in, yeah, we chipped
Oh,
in
that's right.
$1 for every
That's
two that
right.
was raised
That's
or
right.
something.
We
but,
show it completed in 2018, so
oh,
might not have been
Maybe
any
it was.
transactions in 18, but
maybe it just seems like years
Got-
ago.
Yeah.
No, it was.
Was it 18?
I thought it was before that, like 17.
Yeah, I did
There
too.
may have been some paperwork to sign off, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll get it figured out.
Okay.
Okay,
Gentlemen, are we good?
thank you.
Great news. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay, items for commission action. The first item on the list is A, consider approving a resolution to adopt a formal procurement policy.
Did you want to go back to one of the consent agenda items that you moved?
Well, they put those at the.
We put
You put it at
these.
the end?
Yeah, for-
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Trying to throw you
Can,
off.
or unless you'd rather have these moved to those
I don't
to
care
the
where
front.
they are.
Okay, let's go with how we've got this. Lacey, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Well, thank you. All right, we've kind of gone back and forth, especially me. I've gone back and forth numerous times. I've lost count. And I think you've answered the questions that I've had. We've had a long conversation here. I think it was, could have been this week, could have been last week. I don't know. But you've answered some questions that I've had. And because I did have some concerns, and you know what my concerns were as far as professional services, as far as changes in the scope of work, as far as change orders, those items that I had concerns about, I really wasn't interested in getting into the daily, day-to-day invoices that come in. I mean, we have a city manager that's responsible for the oversight of that. But the key concerns I've had, I think you've answered them for me. And I look at it this way. We will, if this is approved and we go forward with this, you know, I myself, and I'm sure these other two gentlemen, we will monitor the process and we'll look at it down the road, maybe 6 months down the road to see how that is performing. Does it perform like we indicated, our questions to you, that you feel like it should perform? And if not, then we can always come back and revisit it, and we can make amendments to it and make changes as we see fit. So as far as I'm concerned, I really don't have any more questions for you, and I'll turn this over to the two gentlemen here if they have additional questions.
I had met with with Lacey end of last week, on Thursday or Friday, and what I had talked to her about was like under definitions, adding the definition for change order and scope of work, so that we have it all in one spot. It is defined later on at the start of the chapter, but that was just a thought of having that all at one place. So you can, sometimes it can, and as we were talking, the idea of what a change of scope and a change order, in some cases, they could be possibly universal depending on your background. And so, you know, that was one thought I had of just putting the definition for those two items in the definition section. The other thing we talked about, it, and it came clear the last time we discussed at the special commission meeting, the items that you talked about, the everyday commodity basically, and the difference between Section 3 and the professional services. And what I thought it makes it clear, maybe if we want to add for purchasing authority and limits for purchase of goods and non-professional services at the title of Section 3. Because when I looked at it the first time, I was getting it all confused. And once Lacey explained it, it made it a lot clearer, the division there. And I thought you know, if we just put that in the section, then it'll make it definitely clear. I think the other thing that we had discussed was on the change order amounts originally, where it had the 25,000 on each. I had marked lowering it to 5,000 with an accumulated amount in excess of 15,000. We had discussed it. I don't know how Gary and Lewis, you feel, if the 25,000, you feel comfortable and want to look at, reevaluate that
Okay,
in 6 months, or?
I think the last meeting, maybe I misunderstood something. I thought I had asked about the change orders and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that all change orders would come before the commission for approval.
Previously done
Yeah.
is change orders
Okay.
on a project we have taken back to the commission in the past.
Okay,
That's
Regardless of the
previously
size.
done.
yeah, and I would like to see that still continue then. And maybe that's where my disconnect is, right there, because I think that's important to us. If we're approving a project, and then there's change orders, multiple change orders, regardless of the amount, you know, they need to come before the commission to explain why there is a change order, why they need it, and the purpose of it, so we can approve it. So I'm going to take that as a disconnect on my part, because I took that meaning as they would come before us anyway, so.
Are there two types of change orders that you were thinking of, Lacey, with that section? One construction, or is this a,
Well, typically for an approved project, I mean, I can't think of a non-construction change order. I can't think of an example when it wouldn't be a construction one that we would bring. And I think the general practice, I mean, we're bringing all of them to you. I don't see that as a, you know, real big deal breaker. For the staff, if you guys, whatever you guys want to do, if you want to say something along the lines of all change orders for approved projects will come before the governing body for approval, that's fine.
I personally would like that.
I don't care. I think we could say anything over 10,000 or something like that, but I'm
I mean,
fine with
do you
seeing them
want
all.
to see change orders that decrease the cost? I mean, that would be, that
Yeah,
would be
we
an
need some good news.
example.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. That would make that pretty much simple,
That's fine, yeah.
be simple to
Okay.
follow.
Okay, I wrote down what I said, so if everyone is good with that.
Okay. I'm glad you are, because I haven't, so I'm going to depend on you to show me where the changes are.
no, I had a note, it was on section 9.1. Did we add to that introductory paragraph and not as outlined in section 3?
So the document that was attached to the agenda is unchanged because
Yeah.
we wanted to discuss it, but I actually prepared a separate one with my anticipated changes, and that is included in there.
Okay, that one.
And I did add and not the process in section 3 to
Okay.
section 9.1 before step 1.
Okay. That's what I was looking through, and I wasn't for sure if I wrote that down.
Yes, this is exactly what you have is exactly how it was presented last time.
Okay. Then I had on section 12, emergency purchases, section 12, emergency purchases for purchase of goods and non-professional services, just adding that description to it too.
In the title.
Yeah. Then the last one was in 14.2. The sentence, All regulations as well as recommendations for changes in general procurement policy will only be made with the approval. Instead of the city manager, I put governing body. And then under this system of control, the city manager has delegated this responsibility and authority to respective department heads. So just modifying the whole policy would come to the governing body since we're the ones approving it, but then still leave the city manager the one in charge of delegating it to the department heads.
So my suggestion for this would be to leave that one, the section 14.2 alone, because I think that's more speaking to he or she has the authority to say, you know, the policy says you need 3 quotes, but what you did is good enough with 2, or you could only find 2, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And I would suggest if what your concern is to add a section 14.4 and say no increases to dollar limitations or changes to the intent of this policy shall be made without approval of the governing body.
Yeah, that would cover both aspects of it.
I think
Yeah.
that would be my
I
suggestion.
understand what you're saying, yeah, because there could be that case of a specialty item or something come up that would have to be modified. And if you try and use the all-inclusive section, it starts bringing conflict. Or if you leave out the part that you added, then the whole thing can read as it can be modified. I like her suggestion to add
Yeah.
14.4.
Great.
Great. I've added it right here. Okay.
And so the
That was
only
it.
other item we talked about was section 4.6. It's under the bid acceptance and bid evaluation. And we talked about removing the sentence, no criteria may be used in bid evaluations that are not set forth in the invitation for bid. And we thought this was important to strike because
Yeah.
we wanted some leeway to use, you know,
Yeah.
a judgment call if we wanted to look at location or service parts, availability, things like that wasn't specifically stated in a bid.
Right, that I didn't write that down in my notes. I remember us discussing that.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
all that I had.
Okay. So did you say we were striking that?
Yes, and I can
That
read
last
you,
sentence?
I can read you a summary of everything, if that will help. I have a summary of the
Yeah,
changes
okay.
prepared. Okay, so
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
just
go ahead.
Okay.
Make sure we all hear this right.
In section 2, we are going to add 2 definitions. The first one, change in scope of work. It will be a modification or amendment that alters the project from what was originally envisioned. The second definition is a change order, and a change order is a change in the time and/or price in a contract. Section 3, we will be modifying the title to add for goods and non-professional services. Section 4.6, we are striking the last sentence that says no criteria may be used in bid evaluations that are not set forth in the bid invitation for bids. Section 6.1 for change orders will read, all change orders for approved projects will come before the governing body for approval. Section 9.1, we are adding and not to the process in section 3, right before step 1. In section 12, we are amending the title to say for goods and non-professional services. And we are adding section 14.4, governing body authorization, to say no increases to dollar limitations or changes to the intent of this policy shall be made without approval of the governing body.
Okay. Good. That's it for you? And you were good initially?
I'm good.
I'm good. So, you'll make the changes on this? On that?
There are 3 three changes that I didn't catch in this version that I printed out. But
Okay.
if you're okay with accepting it with these modifications, we have it ready for you to sign the ordinance or the resolution, and I can just make these changes and get
Okay.
it published and sent out to you guys.
That was actually my next question. I was going to ask where we go to
Yeah.
from here. So I'm good with it. You're good with it. You're good with it. So
do it.
let's just do it. I move to approve a resolution to adopt the formal procurement policy as provided to the commission. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
With
All in-
modifications.
With modifications, excuse me.
You made two.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Lacey, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, item B, consider setting the date of August 14th at 5:30 PM for a public hearing to consider adopting the 2019 revised and 2020 proposed budget. Okay, Lacey, again.
So we've had a couple of special commission meetings on the budget now, and this is just to set the formal notice of budget hearing to hopefully review and adopt the budget at that August 14th meeting.
Okay, if I understand right, if we go ahead and adopt the 2019 revised and the 2020 proposed budget, the items are set. We can decrease the amount of spending.
Correct.
But once this proposed budget is
Once
set,
once it's published,
then
you can't increase
you
the
can't
spending authority.
increase it.
Mhm.
Okay. Hey.
And you have in front of you the notice of budget hearing for both the 2020 budget, and then the revised would be those amended budgets, just the airport and special use sales tax.
Okay. Okay. Gentlemen, what's your feelings on this?
Need to get it set?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think go ahead and set the day.
Okay. Okay, I make a motion that we move to set the date of August 14th, 2019 at 5:30 PM for a budget hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Lacey, thank you.
Thanks.
Item C, consider approval for a memorial to be located at the Independence, Kansas Municipal Airport. Mike?
Yes, we have a request for a memorial to be replaced at the airport. I have Mike Conway, Cody Shamlin here, tell you a little bit about it and answer any questions.
Okay. Cody, how are you?
I'm doing well. How y'all?
Good.
Good, man.
Last August 14, 2018, there was an unfortunate crash that killed Tim Valentine, Bill Warner, Nick Warner, Corbin Warner, and Hayden Warner. It was a very, very sad set of circumstances, obviously. And I can't tell you how, our aviation community out here is such a small, group. And I can't tell you how much of an impact that Tim Valentine and Bill Warner had on us out there. Actually, Tim Valentine actually came up here the Thursday before the unfortunate crash, and we're talking about how we can do some work on the FBO and whatnot. He was helping us on that as well. Bill Warner was such a huge part of the airport out there as well. He had his crop spraying business out there, and we just want to do something to really honor these guys. And initially, when we started getting the ball rolling, I can't tell you how touched I am at how much our community has reached out and wants to help us put this memorial in, and it's very moving, actually. Where we're looking at putting it on the slide there, we're wanting to put it to the south of our FBO there, facing the ramp. on the west side of the fence there. And it'll be between the gate itself and the FBO. And we're looking at putting in a memorial stone and along with the sidewalk going up toward, of course, memorial stone will sit on a concrete form. And Allen Monument is dedicating the memorial stone for us. Wonderful group of people there. Concrete work is being paid by Brothers Railroad Inn / Sawyer's Fine Wine and Spirits. Dirt work, the form and the dirt work are being donated by R&S Construction, and the concrete is being donated by Mid-America Construction. The flagpole is being donated by Dale Wilkins / EAA, and the landscaping will be done by Kansas Aviation, along with Matt Jacobs, who's with Lochner, our engineering firm. He's really helped us out on this, helping us file the 7460 and get that taken care of for the flagpole as well. You got anything?
That's it. Really, it's all donations. Cody come to me about 3 days after the accident happened and brought the idea up, and we've kind of been working on it ever since. And we went out and got donations from everybody, ourselves included, and just ready to go. We're just waiting on the 7460 to be approved through FAA. We've touched all the bases there. Matt Jacobs from Lochner did that for us. And like I said, everybody just pitched together, and this is what we're coming up with. We don't have a rendering yet of anything, but we'll get it and bring it back. But we just need to go ahead to proceed forward.
Okay. That's great. That's great news that people have gotten involved. They've donated money, time, and services to complete this.
Will this be owned by the city or some other entity?
Be owned by the city.
Will there be any maintenance required?
Cut the grass.
We are looking at doing some landscaping there, and the maintenance, the way we're looking at it, the maintenance be minimal. There shouldn't be a whole lot to it, to be honest with you. We're there again. We're still in the process of talking to different folks.
What's that guy's name? I can't remember his name. On the landscaping, we're trying to figure out
we
have to be real careful because of where it is. Certain things we can't plant, like you can't use mulch at an airport. It's not good for planes. So that's really it. I mean, it's a simple project. No expenditure to the city. Flagpole will be lit by a regular, what do they call them? Solar flagpole sign. It just actually mounts on a flagpole, so flag can be flown 24/7. So it's going to be a nice project. It's ADA accessible.
Okay.
Is that the only lighting? You're not going to light the stone at night, or is there that much need for it to be lit at night?
I don't think it is. I mean, the traffic down there in the evening, at nighttime's not that much. And, somebody can see it, we could get another light and turn it the other way too. So, if everybody, when we get it up and if we need it, we can look at that too. So.
Okay, great.
All right.
Looking forward to see when it's all said and done.
Okay, so we push forward on everything?
Yep.
Any questions?
Gary?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think we need a motion though, right?
Yep, okay.
Right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
I make a motion that we move to approve a memorial to be located at the Independence Municipal Airport in memory of the lives lost in the 13 EP plane crash that occurred on August 4th, 2018 at Ponca City, Oklahoma. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, item D, consider rezoning tracts of land from county P-1 and agriculture districts to M-2 heavy industrial district at the following locations. Number 1, tract number 1, southwest corner of County Road 3300, Russ Meyer Boulevard / Freedom Drive, estimated at 8.5 acre tract in the Airport Industrial Park. And number 2, tract number 2, 730 North Peter Pan Road, estimated 39 acre tract in the West Laurel Industrial Park. Excuse me.
These are areas that were annexed into the city, and we just need to do the zoning, get it cleaned up. They're both in industrial parks. The first one's in the Airport Industrial Park, and it's shown in the sketch. Here's a larger aerial with north at the top. If you need to orient yourself on that. This is that piece of property that's being purchased from, on lease purchase from IEP, that was annexed in the city, zoned, de-annexed, and now we're rezoning it. So we're basically just putting it back the way it was. So
Okay.
just trying to get this cleaned up, and so the Planning Commission recommended approving both of these.
Okay. Gentlemen, any questions concerning this?
Nope. Let's do it.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, then I make a motion that we move to adopt ordinances rezoning tracts of land from County P-1 and agricultural districts to M-2 heavy industrial district at the following locations. Tract number 1, southwest corner of County Road 3300, Russ Mile Boulevard / Freedom Drive, estimated 8.5 acre tract in the Airport Industrial Park. Tract number 2, 730 North Peter Pan Road, estimated 39 acre tract in the West Laurel Industrial Park. Do I have a second?
A second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kelly. Item E, consider traffic modifications at Donald Avenue. Chief Harrison, good to see you.
Evening. Good to see you, gentlemen. How are you?
Dandy.
All right. Well, this came about. We got a few complaints from residents in the area. The current state, as you can see there, stops traffic going north and southbound between Taylor and Mulberry. And we had a number of complaints that they didn't like the traffic pattern in that area. The Traffic Safety Committee took a look at it and requested the modifications that are in the following picture there. It's an addition of 3 stop signs to the area, and the rest of the stop signs would be moved to stop east-west traffic on Donald Avenue, which is a low-traffic street as compared to those north-south streets traveling between Taylor and Mulberry.
Gentlemen, any,
So what you're going to do is slow traffic down on Donald Avenue and Gary Avenue, Sioux Lane,
and
Linda
Linda
Jean will be direct from Mulberry to Taylor Road.
That's correct.
Okay. And it was the other way around?
Correct. With the addition of the stop sign there at Samuel Place and Donald Avenue,
Yeah.
and the 2 stop signs there at Kelly Lane and Donald Avenue, which is an uncontrolled intersection. That next intersection to the east there, Donald Avenue and Russell, is just where 2 streets abut and end. So I didn't see the need, and the committee didn't see the need in putting a stop sign at that location.
We used to live right there on Linda Jean and always thought those stop signs were in the wrong spots.
Well, as you can see, I've heard that from a number of folks.
I'm not surprised.
So I passed it off to the Citizens Committee and asked them to give me a recommendation on what they thought would be best, and this was what they came up with. All I did was add the Kelly Lane stop signs. I felt like while we're there, we might as well clean up that area and get it controlled.
Okay. Well, they ought to be happy with this, moving traffic through.
I think so.
Yeah.
Some will, some won't.
Directly to Taylor Road. It's something they'll have to get used to.
So it'll be more direct for school traffic between
Mhm.
Taylor Road and Mulberry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I don't have any further questions, gentlemen. We're good? All right, Chief, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I make a motion that the following changes be implemented. That a stop sign be placed at the intersection of Donald Avenue and Samuel Place, stopping traffic on Donald. The stop signs at Gary Avenue, Sioux Lane, and Linda Jean Drive be changed to stop the east-west traffic on Donald Avenue, and stop signs be added to Donald Avenue and Kelly Lane, stopping east-west traffic on Donald Avenue. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. Item F, consider allowing found property to be donated to deserving organizations or persons upon approval of the city manager. Chief Harrison again.
Jerry.
Good evening.
Yes.
So
Let's
as-
see.
As you recall, we passed this ordinance in 2016, and since that time frame, we've brought a number of requests to the commission for approval. And as I recall from previous conversation, the direction of the commission was find a solution so that we don't continue to add these to the agenda, and let's make things more efficient. Work with Jeff Chubb, and this is the recommendation that he suggested that's attached there to amend that ordinance so that the change is that it's items can be donated to deserving organizations at the discretion of the city manager. That's the only change. And there's also a codicil in there that if we determine that someone turns around and sells a donated item, that it's the city's discretion to take them out of eligibility for future donations.
Makes sense.
And I've got 2 requests in right now that are one's from ICC that we've donated previously to for the college students, and one's from the men's, I believe it's the men's shelters, Home Sweet Home, for transportation for their members.
Okay. Great.
Was the ordinance that was in the packet, is that the amended ordinance?
It was updated with the right mayor after we
Oh.
sent the revisions out.
Okay, that's what I was getting
I didn't catch
confused.
that until after.
Yeah,
After it was, I sent out the revisions and I was like, oh shoot, missed that.
Yeah,
But it
but-
has been corrected.
This is one of those deals that has been sitting on my desk for maybe a little bit.
Maybe a
yeah.
And so we needed to change the mayor's
Yeah.
name on there.
That's what I was looking at the 2, and I thought, well, didn't we already do that? So, but, okay,
This just makes it so that it doesn't have to come to the commission.
sure. I just thought, well, if I already signed it with that wording, what, I'm missing
Why
what
are
was
we here?
changed.
Sure.
Okay. Good, gentlemen? All right, Chief Harrison, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
All righty, I make a motion that we move to amend City Code Section 18-452, Ordinance 4228, Section 2B as written to allow found property to be donated to deserving organizations or persons upon approval of the city manager. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Sean, Mr. Turner, you're up. Item G.
You had some items, you took off items for action. Did you cover all those?
No, we're going back to
We're going
item,
back to
item G of
to
consent agenda.
G, and we still have to consider item J. Okay.
On item G, from the consent agenda, I asked it to be removed. Following up, we had discussed this a couple times, and what I had asked Kelly if she could furnish us a division of the cost for the contract between the ADA and the milling and overlay. And I think I had that in here. What I was thinking, I haven't really looked specific extent. It's still kind of where we were originally, but to get the contract going so we can get the milling and overlay, then come back and visit. 'Cause, yesterday, Gary, you were talking about some ADA work downtown, and if we could put the package together and be more, let's go to a minimum in the residential area so we can have the money to do in the downtown to address our ADA needs there, kind of shift that area, some of the sidewalks, instead of looking at a continuous path, let's do the curbs that are necessary. But if the slope is excessive, then let's look at the structural impracticability clause of the ADA and not do those, so it'll shift our money to where we need to be in some of our downtown area. And that way, we could go ahead and sign the agreement for the milling and overlay services, and then come back, and if we want to do an addendum to that agreement, we could add the ADA back in once we really have a chance to look and define it. 'Cause this will include some ADA along the downtown route, and maybe we can look at some of the needs there a little more intently. But I think, I thought I copied and put that in.
I had the mill and overlay amounts for the design. It was 8,000, and then
Yeah.
for the construction, engineering, and inspection, it was 15,000.
Yeah, so it'd be a total engineering contract at this point of 23,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Leonard, just a question. On the downtown, like right there by the professional building, that slab that's all messed up, those bricks, are those those type of items you want us to, when we come back, address those?
That, and I think on, let's see, Laurel Street, there at the theater.
Yes.
We've got drainage running across the sidewalk. Look at putting in maybe a trench drain with a metal grate so we could keep the ice from building up on the surface. But, just becoming a little more
Right.
detailed there.
If I remember right, you said 8th Street sidewalk.
Yeah, especially at 8th and Main, on that northeast corner of that, the sidewalk is buckling.
Yeah.
The brick is disappearing. It's
Yeah, that's
falling apart, and there's
Sean's
a big
aware
lump
of that
there.
one.
I don't know how you'd ever get a wheelchair up there at this
right.
point.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks to me like something bad is going on underneath there.
Yeah, we have an idea what's happening.
Good. I hope it's a cheap idea to fix.
But I'll put some sort of list together
And
and
I
get
can
back
get
to you.
with you if you want.
Yeah, I'll get with you and we can
There
put
were
some
some
list.
couple things we had talked about
Yes.
last
Yep.
week, so.
Yep.
But
I'll get with Lacey because we can do the
I didn't-
visit with you and the money and what we got.
I didn't want to keep coming back and forth. Let's
Yeah,
get
it's
the
getting,
streets.
it's getting late in the season,
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll get some bids.
Yeah.
and get it done.
Did we had bids on the milling and overlay already, didn't we?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
I think Heckert told Mike, you're thinking in the next couple of weeks? Second week of August, that overlay will start.
Good. Okay.
Great.
So,
So all the overlay projects that we have,
Yes.
they're all for Heckert.
Yes, they're all through Heckert, and
All
you
through
guys have
Heckert.
approved them, and we're ready
Okay.
to go. Second week of August, it'll start.
Okay,
Yahoo.
yeah. Okay, gentlemen, anything else? I thought this all looked familiar. It was deja vu to me when I saw this come up, and I thought, this looks vaguely familiar. I've seen this somewhere before.
I think I moved to approve up to $23,000 for milling, overlay, engineering for the 2019 street overlay project.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Dave. Okay, we are down to J, which is consider a contract with the League of Kansas Municipalities for a league executive/administrative position search to assist the city in filling the position of city manager.
In the agreement that we received from the league, it mentioned a contact person, kind of alluding not to have all three of us calling. And what I was wondering, if we're going to accept the agreement, then that we would authorize the mayor to be that contact person for us.
Yeah, I like the presentation. We can tailor it to what we need. Gentlemen, you've used this before and you were very comfortable with the process. So I'm going to go along with what she indicated to me and what you've indicated to me in your comments. So I'm good, and I'll take on that as being the contact person. So I do not have a problem with that. If we're all good?
I was content with the presentation, and the contract seemed to be
Yeah.
appropriate, similar to what we did. There were a couple features of advertising, and then the league handling the on-site visits and tours and that. If we got a proposal from that, that might eliminate some work for us, and then keep continuity between all visits.
Right. Yeah, it just had a lot of pluses, the nationwide search, be able to plug in what we want, what we don't want. Yeah, so I'm good. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve a contract with the League of Kansas Municipalities for a league executive administrative position search to assist the city in filling the position of city manager. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right. There is item 5. There was an update on city grants and loans.
Back to Sean.
Yes. Sean?
I'll just run through all of the current projects that have a grant or loan that we're working on. The oldest one is the 2017 Clink project. That was held up because of some disputed liquidated damages of getting that closed out. But the city has gotten that closed out as far as KDOT's concerned, and the city received reimbursement for their grant last week. So that was $300,000 reimbursement. So there is an issue that probably to talk to Jeff about. There's still a small remaining amount the contractor's due and refuses to receive payment on. So we'll have to talk about how the city wants to handle that small amount remaining.
We owe him money, refuses to take it?
He refuses to sign a final change order that would deduct reduce the project. So I don't recall that exact amount of money, but that's all city money as far as KDOT's concerned. The project's complete. So the next project is the Peter Pan.
Well, are we working to close that out? Can't we notify him that in a certain period of time that if he doesn't sign it, we're going to go ahead and authorize it and send him a check? Is that
I honestly haven't been asked to look at that
Oh,
for
okay.
ages.
Okay.
It's probably an attorney-client thing, but, I mean, there is a statute of limitations of 5 years on written contracts. If he doesn't do anything to us in 5 years, you just keep it off if you want. But that's something we could think about.
Okay.
And I'll send you the amounts, Jeff, and we can.
Okay.
The next one is the Peter Pan Economic Development Project. Kelly has a good graphic on the screen. The yellow part was originally constructed under a GI. The green part was the short piece that the city did. And then the blue part is this most recent project, which is the Economic Development Project. That's been bid. The low bidder was Jeff Graham Construction. The city and KDOT has approved it being awarded to him. He's been sent the notice of award. He has 14 days to respond with his bonds and insurance. So we're in that process. When we receive those, then we'll review his data and then schedule a pre-construction conference. We expect that to happen within the next 2 weeks. This one was on your consent agenda, the West Main C-Clip. This is around the Peter Pan intersection. Originally, the city applied and the commission approved a mill and overlay project that began 300 feet east of Peter Pan and then went west on 75 to the city limits. The C-CLIP grant process, you send in your grant application, then KDOT, a group of KDOT engineers and administrators visit the city, review the project. The people representing KDOT felt this was a good candidate for a white topping project at the intersection due to the amount of rutting at the Peter Pan and West Main intersection. So they allowed the city to revise the application so that it could cover a white topping. So that increased this project. Originally, the project you applied for was $195,000 in KDOT or state money and $38,000 in city. On this new C-CLIP, what they've approved with the revised application is a $300,000 state, but it would require $71,000 city. So the city's share did go up about $23,000. And discussing this with Mike Passeur, there's still going to need to be some geotechnical work or at least some pavement coring to make sure we can do white topping. But this would cover either or. You're in much better shape with KDOT allowing the city to revise that application where you could do the white topping, or worst case, if conditions don't allow, you're just back to doing what the original project was, which was a mill and overlay. So if we do white topping, I don't believe this money is going to go all the way to the city limits. It's going to fall short still, but under this program, that's the maximum amount you could get from KDOT, the $300,000. So that's why it will end at some point.
So with white topping, we'll adjust the extent for the money available.
Correct. And Mike has discussed several times is KDOT just recently overlaid 75 beginning at the city limits and going on. So if we did do that, then there's going to be a piece that's not done. So we may want to talk about the city milling and overlaying that piece, whatever that distance is, with their own money. But that's a discussion for later on when we figure out exactly what we're going to be doing there. So.
Okay.
There's one section just west of the intersection of Peter Pan, close to where the Orchlands and the motel, and the north edge of the westbound lane that's got a severe rut in it, or it looks like the base has settled. For the white topping, would that have to be cut out and stabilized, or how does the white topping work? Do you mill it and then come back with white topping?
Correct. Take all the asphalt off and then you're basically doing a concrete overlay, and there's been a learning curve through the years on this. This has not been around a long time, but 20 or 30 years. And at first, the first overlays were 3 to 4 inches thick, and engineers learned that's not a good idea. So we want to at least go 6 inches thick on our white topping. If we can't do that, then we're probably going to go back to Plan A, which was the mill and overlay, asphalt mill and overlay. The 3-inch white toppings just don't hold up quite as well.
Yeah.
When you go with the 6 or 8 inch white topping, how long do you expect those to last?
That's more of a 20-year type pavement. The 3-inch ones, you end up having to saw cut in the wheel path, and then it just, through trial and error, unfortunately, engineers have learned that's not a good idea. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, with probably a lighter trafficked highway, but there's a lot of heavy traffic right through there.
Yeah, a lot of turning movements go through that intersection, and you can, if you go out and look at the asphalt, you can definitely tell.
When is the start date on this particular project?
Well, this one, now that you've approved signing your agreement, then you're going to have to, it's time to contract with an engineer, and with KDOT funding, you can pick someone off the list like Trans-Systems, or you can go through a procurement process of sending out.
Crazy coincidence that is.
Yes, it is. So send out a request for qualifications also. It's your choice how you do that, but you're at that point where you need to do that.
Okay.
So do we need to do the coring to decide the system, then engineering, or engineering, then put that?
Yeah, that's what I would do. Make that part of your scope to determine. Then you're putting the decision on the engineer you hire, basically. I mean, their professional opinion of what you're going to be doing.
But the scope of the project could either just be, it could be a milling and overlay clear to the city limits, or it could be just a partial of that distance.
Correct.
Yeah, with the white topping.
Correct. Correct. That's right. And the first step being a geotechnical or pavement coring investigation to determine which path you go down.
Which has to be done anyway for either milling and overlay or white topping?
Yes. Yeah, it's a good idea to do that at the intersection. Yes.
And the state will cover it either way. I mean, the state money.
Correct. Correct. If we go white topping, you're just not going to make it to the
That's
city
far.
limits. Yeah.
Right.
And the engineering cost would be relatively the same.
Yeah, I believe so too. That's the way I see it. It's not going to be that. The dollars are going to be the same,
Right.
so you
Budget's
should.
identical.
Yeah. Any other questions on that one?
No,
Nope.
I'm good.
The next one is the 10th and Main intersection. So this drawing shows a previous application we sent in from a previous year, and it goes from 9th to 10th. But what we applied for in this one is for access management. It was from 10th to halfway between 9th and 10th. And we applied for the access management program, and that's $400,000 state and $245,000 city. We have not heard if you received funding on that. We've asked recently, and we expect to know this fall. So then the next piece we applied for was in a previous meeting, and I still refer to these as GI projects, but it's actually a pavement replacement project. It's a PR project, and the city was informed this week or last week that you received funding for this through the KDOT, and it's $1 million KDOT and $384,000 city. So what I we've talked with staff. What we've decided, what's best for the city is wait till fall to see if you receive your other grant before you do anything else. I mean, at some point, KDOT will send you an agreement to do this project. You can go ahead and sign that, but before doing any engineering or anything, I would wait till you hear if you.
So the one on the screen, we have gotten notice that we've received the award on this one.
Correct.
But the next one we have not. That one.
This one you are awarded. You got $1 million for this from KDOT, and the city's committed to, through the application process, $384,000.
Okay. So can I go back one slide, Kelly? Sorry.
Yeah.
So this one, I'm a little concerned about acquiring property on that one.
Correct.
Because we've gotten burned so badly on that in the past. Does the grant from the state help cover that property acquisition?
No.
No.
It does not.
So we could be taken to the cleaners again, even though that's sitting there vacant.
You're somewhat at the mercy, yes, regarding.
We have it appraised and.
Yeah, you could, if you go through the condemnation process, it is well defined what happens. That doesn't mean it's going to be.
Well, that's been sitting empty ever since I moved here. But if we do this, you almost can't use that property, right? I mean, there's no access to that little piece of property anymore.
It'd only be through the alley. And,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, KDOT would require we eliminate all access. And honestly, they're so close to the corner anyway.
Yeah.
Whether it was an access management project or not, it would be the best practice to eliminate all those.
So I can see us having to eat another $200,000 to buy that lot.
Yeah, I looked at the assessed value. Kelly, do you recall what that was? I'm thinking it was like 70-some thousand on the assessed value on the county records.
The building and stuff, I think is in pretty rough.
Really rough. But on the last one, we just took a little bit of their front yard and we still paid 70, didn't we?
It was like 90.
90? Yeah, so this is going to be twice it because this is commercial property.
That is always a gamble on buying.
Yeah, I don't think it's a gamble in this case. I think we can just go ahead and budget for it.
If we didn't get the access management money for this portion of the project, then we wouldn't be forced to put the turn lane in, would we? We wouldn't be obligated to put it in. We could just replace that section of roadway and not do that.
That's kind of what killed us, but they were pretty adamant on Peter Pan. They would not even extend the limits of that project to participate in that short piece the city did. So in this case, I think you could argue you're not wanting to expand those limits. But I don't see them doing that now. They awarded the project separately, your other project separately from this.
Well, I'm wondering if we don't get the access management grant, then we could go ahead so we have from 10th Street to 8th Street new, how much would out of the city's budget to do the half block?
We can do a cost estimate on that. You're talking just doing pavement replacement and not doing any other geometric improvements.
Right.
Yeah, we can do a cost estimate on that. I don't know off the top of my head.
But don't we have to do sidewalks then?
The part on the Walgreens side is in pretty good shape. But
right,
the
but
part
not between 8th and 9th. It's in terrible shape.
Yeah, you have to do sidewalks as part of the project you've been awarded. Yes, you do. Yes.
But it'd save them, we wouldn't own the property at the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And we could take out the two entrances on Main Street, improve traffic flow there.
Maybe he'd like to just donate it to the city,
The building?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, he concreted in the old tank so nobody could open a convenience store there.
Any other questions on that one?
Sean, the word letter that we got said the half block east of US 75 and US 160.
Yeah, that's a very brief description, isn't it?
Okay, so I thought it was the project that only covered the.
No,
half block.
that one's access management. If you look back at the application, it's clear that that's the scope.
Okay.
That drawing.
Well, that
went
was a
in.
little confusing.
It is.
Yeah,
That
it
It is.
description
sounded like
looked like
just
it
a
was
half a
just a
block.
half block.
Right.
That's why I
It's-
was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it starts a half block from the
Okay.
from the intersection.
So we actually got this one.
Well, that's really confusing.
Yeah,
That is confusing.
that's good though.
It's not just confusing, it's wrong, because it says the half block just
Yeah.
east of 10th.
I know, so. And we have one we applied for that met that. Right.
Wow.
Okay.
I want their money, whatever it's good for, but I'd like to know.
What it's gonna pay for.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that?
No.
The only other outstanding KDOT application is also the access management project on the alley from Catalpa to Oak. So you would hear at the same time, sometime this fall on that one as well. And it was 950,000 state, 260,000 city in the application.
Is that the Dairy Queen one?
Correct.
Dairy
Behind
Queen
it.
all the way up to Catalpa, just north of,
Correct.
they'd be north of Mikey's? No, or,
It's north of Mikey's, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
okay.
that's the scope, yes.
okay.
So it's pretty long and fairly expensive.
Yeah.
Then the other project I have is the wastewater revolving loan. The application is complete, and the accompanying data, the engineering report, and the environmental review. I did notice today you need to issue, since there's been a change in city managers, you need to issue reissue the resolution for the governing body, the applicant, to designate who your authorized representative is. And I don't.
We can do that.
I assume at the next meeting you can do that. And then that can be submitted, and that is for the $3.1 million. It had Basin 5, the second phase of Basin 5, the Lakeview Lift Station. Then there's $1.7 million designated for just I&I abatement, and I think KDHE would be pretty flexible on what you use that money for, either on lift stations or on just pure I&I abatement. They've been pretty flexible in the past. So. And in the environmental review, that's kind of the key. If you do it for the entire city, then they allow you to do anything in the city, pretty much. So.
And that total is $3.1 million?
Correct.
Okay.
It'll be a while before we can see any impact on reduction of I&I, won't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's usually your first dollars spent are the biggest bang. So what you did in Basin 5 will be your biggest, and then this next phase of Basin 5, you'll see some diminishing returns, but it's just never ending for every municipality. You just try to manage your dollars that you use for I&I. And KDHE's typically pretty understanding about it. If you try to manage your overflows, that's what they want to see, and that's exactly what the cities has been doing. So. Through either increases in lift station capacity or reductions in I&I, you really have to do both of them to stay out of trouble with the states.
With the amount of rain we had this spring, it's
Yeah,
impossible to see what that impact,
Right.
if any.
I was looking at that same thing today. The flows from 5 years ago, and you just can't compare
Yeah.
because
You have to have similar rain.
Yeah. Yep.
At least theoretically, we're reducing it.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions?
Good?
No.
We're good.
Thank
Sean,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Kelly, you have any comments? Okay. Commissioner comments. Oh, I skipped right over rec commission minutes, but I didn't have anything on that. Commission comments, gentlemen, left or right?
I have nothing.
I know we've discussed a couple times about the plan and code review, service to aid the building inspector, and I visited with Kelly and David this afternoon with a project. We've got the complexity of a mixed-use occupancy. It's really, you really have to be proficient with the codes and multiple codes to get a full understanding of what all the criteria is for the project to guarantee protection of life safety. And with trying to interpret these, it can be really frustrating for the inspectors and staff trying to deal with it. What I would recommend to the commission is to help that we look at securing a outside consultant that would do a plan review and a code review so that they could highlight all the needs in the project, and then instead of reporting to the staff, they would report to the commission, and then we could relay the information to kind of remove the commission, the staff from the problems of trying to comprehend all the information that's coming in, and then the consultant could aid directing on any questions that come up dealing with the systems, on-site monitoring of testing, sprinklers, fire alarm. They're really complex, and in knowing the correct design for the situation and also the final testing to assure that they're functioning properly. And you know, in our city ordinance, I think it's section 2-35, it's where it talks about that no member of the governing body shall directly interfere with the conduct of any department except at the express designation or direction of the governing body. That with this one section, it would be able to benefit in my opinion, the staff to help get the information reviewed, come up with directions for them to respond, and then aid in them seeing that all the life safety features are in compliant. They'd have a source for questions, and then start on future projects, give them a point of contact, so you know the plans could be reviewed and codes could be prepared, and any questions they'd have a direct source, outside source to go to for information.
You know, I think that's a good idea.
I liked part of it. You know, if we get a complicated project, we obviously cannot expect our city inspector to know everything. You know, I bet 90% of the city construction permits, he is very capable, and I think he's the right one to look at them. If you're building a brewery with multifamily housing right above it, then I think that makes great sense. There are companies out there that will do code reviews for you. So I think it makes some sense to bring them in on an as-needed basis. However, I cannot see having them report directly to the commission and bypassing the city staff. Right now, that might make great sense. We have a professional engineer on the city commission and a licensed architect. In a few months, we won't have a professional engineer, and perhaps in 2 years, if you decide to step down, I'm not saying you will, but if you do, then we don't have an architect. So then it makes absolutely no sense whatever to me to have a code review brought to the commission.
It wouldn't be ongoing. It would just be to get this established and started, then projects after would go direct to the staff. Kind
So
of
you're
help.
saying just the very first one would come
Right.
directly to us?
Right.
I got you.
Just kind of help get through some hurdles, take the pressure off the learning curve for the staff. Let them step back, with guidance, and they could have a little more assistance. And
Yeah, like I said, I like that part of it. It's asking an awful lot to expect one person to know all the codes. I think it's impossible. I think Don's doing a phenomenal job, but he can't know everything. I'm a little concerned about and you both know, everybody knows I'm an investor in the brewery, and they need to get open. I don't want to, do something unsafe, but I don't want them to go bankrupt before they're able to open their doors either. So if this is going to take, a long, long time to do, I want to do something faster. I want to get somebody in immediately if we need to do that and get it reviewed and get it back underway. Again, I'm not privy to what all's going on there, but this sounds like a process that would take some time just to choose the firm we want to work with and then to get them to do their thing and all.
I think
So-
selecting a firm can be done in a couple days, a couple phone calls, and then actual review of the drawings and the code search. I would expect that, like, within a week to have the results. It could be turned around.
Is that
really
fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mainly you start with review of the code footprint.
What firm are we talking about hiring?
There's 3 in Kansas City.
Are you considering Mark as one of those?
Who?
Mid-America Regional Council? They're a not-for-profit that offers this service for small communities to come in and do their code reviews.
Not familiar with them.
I know
The
they're
firms
very
were-
reasonable for cities that want to hire them.
Mainly were engineering firms familiar with fire sprinklers and
Okay.
uh,
So the fire
Also,
sprinkler is is what's the issue in this building?
it's a more complex issue of
Sure.
code review because of
Absolutely.
the different systems and the submittal process of review that could help, and they could guide in actual testing and monitoring for the staff on what to look, sequencing and review. Some, the basic IBCs, the 2012, that's a lot simpler, but when you get into the NFPA on alarms and the fire suppression, it requires a little more knowledge. Because
Sure.
some of the coverage requirements in concealed chases, combustible construction, positioning of the heads, and
Do we have any idea what the fee would be on this at this point, or too early to talk about that?
well, I didn't do any calling until I knew what the commission wanted to do.
All right. Are you thinking we will charge the fee as an inspection fee or permit fee to the building owner? Or is that something you're thinking maybe the city will pick up?
Well, for the initial code review, that's part of what the building permit costs. That's normally provided by the city, so this wouldn't be something they would charge back to the owner. And Kelly and I discussed some of the things you run into with building, that if Don goes out and he's scheduled a time for an inspection, I think if we have a fee for that, then if he goes out and the work isn't properly prepared and he's got to reinspect,
Right.
then maybe we should look at a reinspection fee. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've got that now, but a lot of times,
Yeah. Or you go to meet the contractor and they don't show up, so you've wasted your time.
Yeah.
been
So I
there.
think that's some things that will really help the staff look at what point and what time the system should be inspected and properly reviewed. That, you know, each one has its own, you know, air test on a water sprinkler system. If you got dry system, there's different checks, flow
Right,
tests
sure.
of the valves, and you know, on the fire alarm, the measuring the sound levels for the audible strobes or horns and things. But I thought with one, it would get the pressure off of staff, focus in on exactly what needs to be done by an outside consultant that's skilled in the area, and then could set up some contact points for future projects that you wouldn't be relying upon a trade to give you information or a contractor,
Right.
but you would have that tie for the
Sure.
different systems.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. I mean, both of you are more familiar with this than I am. I'm just catching the fringes of this, but, yeah, if this can be done within you're looking at a week process, I said,
And
let's,
I think what I would see that if it's an agreement, then tomorrow, make the calls, see the interest. If we have the information available with PDFs, send it to the firms to get a price, and then, you know, by hopefully, you know, at the time of contact tomorrow, explain we're at a crunch, what their schedule is to make sure that it is a quick turnaround, because, you know, we've, I think this came to light about some situations the 13th of June, and we need to get it turned around to get the pressure off of Dave and Don, so we can get some answers to go forward.
Okay. Let's do it.
let's do it.
Okay, and I'll get some phone numbers and get with you and Kelly tomorrow.
Okay.
And that was all that I had.
Do we need to formally make a motion on this, or
I don't think so.
no?
Kelly, what do
I'm
you
just
think?
asking.
Do we need a motion to
Do we, or what do we need to
report
do?
on that?
I'm not sure, whatever you do, I'm not sure that ordinance is valid, to be honest, he's talking about. I think it predates the election when the city adopted city manager, commission form of government. I don't know that for sure, I may be wrong.
But it's still in the ordinance.
Well, it doesn't, the prevailing view at the league is that ordinances that were on the, and statutes too, state statutes that were on the books when the legislature said cities can go to the city manager, commission form of government, and cities had the elections, that it rendered a lot of statutes and ordinances invalid, even though they're still on the books. I don't know the timing of the election when we went to city manager and whether that ordinance predates it. I really don't. It may be after, it may be before. And I also have a concern, your area of expertise is architecture. 5 years from now, we may have a commissioner who's a retired sheriff, and he wants to somehow get involved with the chief of police and tell him how to run his. I have a concern with any city commission taking over administrative functions. This is clearly an administrative function. I just need to state that. I think working cooperatively with city staff is great. I don't discourage that at all. And I think if this is your area of expertise, if you want to work cooperatively with them, that's great, no problem. I do worry about the validity of the ordinance, so.
Well, it's in there now, and if we find out that it's not valid, we can act then, but since it's there now, and that's what we've got to work with. And the thing is that a decision needs to be made. We've got a contractor waiting, we've got staff under pressure,
Staff has authority to make the decision if you let them.
Mhm.
They have the authority, you have procurement policy, they can make the decision if you let them. If you don't want them to make the decision, that's another thing, so. Those are my thoughts.
Mhm.
I like, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I like the thought of an independent third party to come in and just do a review. Clear it up in a matter of a few days, and we move on.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that, including city staff.
Yeah, the question is, who do they report to?
Well, I sent this to the league months ago, and their opinion was that it's in there to allow the city to go forward when there's not a full, we've got Kelly as our temporary interim city manager, but it gives the guidance for things to go forward. We need to get the contractor a decision, and we need to look that the staff is under a lot of pressure dealing with what to do. And this is just a one-time project to set it up, but we've got life safety issues that we have to know for sure. And we can't keep kicking the can down the road. And this is one way to get it resolved. It'll give staff a point of contact, and it'll put the pressure on us instead of them. That it'll be the firm that we've had review it, that it'll give them the piece to just administer a decision by an outside consultant. We're not going to tell them how the code reads. It'll come from the independent consultant. He'll have the report, or they'll have the report, and that's all that needs to be administered. But
I will tell you that we were, and like I told you earlier, we were in the process of getting contact with an independent code reviewer. Just didn't have the engineered stamp plans that we needed to proceed with that. But after speaking to you last week and the things that you pointed out, we had, started down that path, and we were just waiting on those plans so we could proceed and do that. So I just wanted to let you know that. I knew you knew that, but
Yeah.
the rest of you know that. And David knows more details about all that if you need specifics.
Well, my thought is let's move forward with the plan that we've laid out. Go with it and move on. We need to get this settled. That's my 2 cents.
I'm going to go back to my original statement, which I think it's a bad idea for us to step into something like this administratively. I like the idea of getting a third party to do a code review and then leave it up to our city staff. Kelly, Dave, Sean, Don, they're certainly capable of reviewing that with the code reviewer and making a decision and moving on. So I would propose that we stick with that plan that Kelly just mentioned. But if you guys want to outvote me, that's absolutely fine.
Because once we get the information from the independent reviewer, it goes to staff to take the enforcement.
Okay.
I'm good with that then. It's independent, and I'll give them the information that they need, and they'll proceed from that point on. But we need to do it in as quick as a turnaround as we can.
So basically, you're saying that you guys want to select the company that's utilized, basically is what you're saying
Yeah.
correctly. Is that correct?
Yep. Now let's proceed ASAP.
I just want to remind you that the procurement policy that we just adopted is applicable to you, so be conscious of the dollar limits. I mean, you're acting as staff basically in this, so
Right.
you're also bound by those
By the
dollar limits
policy.
and number of quotes that you have to get from companies. I have no idea how much this costs, but
Okay.
just a reminder.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yep.
Hate to break our own rules.
That's what rules are for, right?
All right. I don't have anything else, so my favorite part of the meeting, we're ready for adjournment. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We're out of here. Thank you for attending.